Everyone, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the OPC to order on May 10th at 8:30. First item on the agenda is approval of the prior meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 19th, 2023?
Motion.
Steve? Jim
Second.
seconds. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Terrific. That was fast. Last Friday, as everybody probably realizes, we closed on Great Island. It was a long process, but now we own this beautiful coastline parcel forever. So I do want to remind everyone until safety protocols are completed and the roads and walkways are modified, vehicular, pedestrian, cycling, all traffic is restricted to just the residents on the island and town personnel at this time. The Board of Selectmen has begun meeting with applicants for the Great Island Advisory Committee. We have 45 applicants.
Oh my God.
So
For how many seats?
for 4 seats.
Wow.
And
It's like college admissions.
you know, yeah.
I'm doing that right now.
And you know what? I am so grateful for all of the residents that step forward for everything in this town, including for this committee. And you know, there are going to be 4 people. We're looking very carefully. We're interviewing every single person that made the deadline. But you know, I look at these other 41 people that won't be on this, and I think these are great people that we now know want to step forward in town. And so we have just kind of added to our roster of potential people to work on building committees or really anything that comes up. So I'm really, really super appreciative of people stepping forward for that. Speaking of volunteers, we had a tree handout, and I want to thank Ed Gentile for helping to secure the trees from Eversource. 400 trees that were donated, and also a shout out to Ed. It's his birthday today, so all of you make sure that you hit him up. I'm not going to have any smart remark about how old he is, but he's very young. But I want to thank my fellow Board of Selectmen member, Mike Burke, and also I want to thank Kate Bush, Linda O'Leary, Marley Hayes, and Karen Dunn, who stood out there with me for really almost 3 hours in the pouring rain. This was pouring rain. And I want to thank Carol Glassmeyer and Todd Morgan for organizing the Boy Scouts, and Paula Sardorti for organizing the Green Team. So these are all volunteers that stepped forward. They spent a good part of their Saturday. These scouts had their parents driving them there, or they were there. The Green Team was there. Again, did I mention it was pouring rain? So that's what makes this town so awesome, are these volunteers. So I cannot, I really can't thank them enough. We did hand out all of the trees except for one, which was handed out at the Eagle Scout ceremony the next day. The RTM passed its budget on Monday. I'm sure Lois will have a lot more to say about that, but I want to thank the department heads, and I want to thank Kate Bush and Jen Terneski for all of their work on that. It was a very thoughtful and thorough submission. Back to Eversource, I am working with Ed Gentile, the Director of Public Works, and we're meeting with Eversource in a couple of weeks to discuss what's going on in other areas of town that are kind of sensitive areas, like by the train stations, to see what we can do as far as any kind of a remediation on planting plans there. Tomorrow evening, Public Works Department is holding a meeting at 7 o'clock at the Town Hall Auditorium. They'll be going over the saltbox drainage study, and this area includes Seagate Road, Post Road, Saltbox Lane East, Coach Lamp Lane, Thomasina Lane, and Pleasant Street. So the public meeting will be addressing this specific drainage study only. We do have other studies in the works, but they're not going to be covered at this time. And we are on a tight schedule. I'm going to go to Jim.
Thank you. So I'll start with Board of Ed stuff, but we're in the middle of talking to Holmes parents at HHR, so I'm going to stay a little and then pop out. Thank you. As a part of Mental Health Month, the high school hosted a Out of the Darkness walk last weekend. It was organized by students and staff, particularly Kate Demoulas. Very well attended. It was a great way to honor the past, but also, give students something to, and the community something to organize around. As far as we're aware, this is the only one in Connecticut that's ever been hosted at a high school. It was done in concert with the American Federation of Suicide Prevention, which a lot of the students went and participated in one of their walks last year as well. They raised over $30K. And just as a side note, it was a really nice way for the community to see the outdoor track, because the walk was done around the outdoor track that was really done a couple of years ago. So, a beautiful event. We thank the families of the students we lost for participating as well. This is Teacher Appreciation Week. So on the subject of thanking people, we thank our teachers this week. They're, of course, the cornerstone of many of our children's education, and we're just grateful for them. So just taking a minute to say thank you. We're in the final stages of our assistant superintendent hire. Many of you know that our current assistant superintendent of curriculum is taking a superintendency in another district. So we are hoping to have an appointment next month, but stay tuned. And we are in the process of appointing a royal principal. I have a sad announcement. The wife of Dr. Timothy Kennebec, who's our district doctor, Maureen Kennebec, who was a nurse in the district for many years, recently passed away fairly quickly. So just want to honor her and her contributions, as well as Dr. Kennebec's. This month is also prom tomorrow night, Hanley happening on Saturday. Of course, graduations are coming the second week in June.
Prom's Friday night, right?
Prom's Friday night.
Good.
Oh, today's Wednesday. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking, wow.
I'm
in
going
the
to
middle
prom
of
on
the
a
week.
Thursday. That'd be awesome.
That's the OPC prom.
I gotta get my tux.
Yeah. And of course, we're grateful to the RTM for passing our budget. I won't say more than that, but we appreciate the full body support of our budget, both financially and all the initiatives that are in it. So from an HHR perspective, today is the second of a series of presentations to each of the school communities. We were at Henley last week. We presented to the teachers in the morning and to the parents, first thing in the morning, and the parents shortly after that. Holmes is happening right now. And then Royal will be next week. We had initially planned to put shovels in the ground in the middle of July. We are taking an extra month to take another look at our construction drawings. We wanted to do another iteration of just clarifying a few things we need to clarify. And we're also sending them out for another round of cost estimates, just to make sure that what we've predicted and appropriated so far is correct.
Do you think the cost went up or down?
Pardon?
Do you think the cost went up or down most recently?
We are more concerned about the cost going up at this time. We're not sure, but we're concerned about that, so we are, on the advice of our construction manager, we're running another cost estimate.
I've heard they came down a little bit.
Well, I hope that's true, yeah.
Is it the price of the cost going up, or is it, slightly additional work that's adjacent that needs to get done? Is it Q or P?
Yes, good point, thank you. The three things that are affecting the cost, our reason for running this additional estimate are some of the things that we found in the original work that we scoped are just more complicated than we realized, particularly when we got up in the ceilings. There have been some requirements at the state or town level that we're just wanting to make sure that are included in the construction drawings in a way that they weren't when we first started out. And there have been some things from the district that where we had broader definitions, particularly around, for example, security and data, where that additional level of definition is greater than we expected.
They'll probably go up then, because new construction ground up
Yeah.
is gone one way, renovations goes another way.
Okay, so,
Because you're mostly renovations.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
30% new construction.
yeah, so.
Good luck.
Here it goes. But anyway, continue to be grateful for the team in place, both the building committee and those dedicated volunteers and the folks that we've hired. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Okay. Well, from my point of view, on Monday, as I'm sure Lois will discuss, the RTM passed a budget. There's a small change to to our reserves, but basically the mill rate was reduced by 0.01. So the new mill rate for next year will be 17.61. I've received a bunch of questions regarding that mill rate, just to make sure everyone knows that applies to the existing grand list. And so while we are starting the reevaluation of all the properties in town, both commercial and residential, for next year's grand list, that mill rate applies only to the, effectively to the grand list as of October 2022. So, next year's fiscal 2025 will be based on the new revaluations. That budget, as Jill pointed out, it approved basically all of the expenditures that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed had put forward. There are a couple small adjustments that the Board of Finance had made with respect to taking out some capital projects, some adjustments and revenue assumptions around the Board of Ed. But I think for a large part, the budgets that both of your boards put forward were, all of the expenditures were passed, pretty much unanimously across all the boards. So I would say big kudos to all of your staff and the work that they've done to develop these budgets and present them and answer all of our questions, RTM questions and so forth. That I really thought it was a great effort and probably one of the best budget processes I've witnessed in the 16 years I've been doing this. Other things, Monica mentioned we closed on Great Island last Friday. Well, the Friday before that, we closed on the $113 million bond deal, okay? Which I think was very timely, and another kudos to our staff, Jen, Kate, the rest of our finance department, bond counsel, in getting that done at the same time they were working on the island, at the same time we were finishing up the budget. That was no small feat. And I would just reiterate, last week everyone probably saw that the Fed raised rates. So the fact that the staff and our advisors and our team was able to move quickly, I think it really paid off being able to get out ahead of that market movement. So, we've locked in low-cost funding. Rates are up a little bit higher, I guess, which is good from an investment standpoint, but it was very timely, so kudos again to all of our staff. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday of next week at 7:30, May 16th. We have a relatively light agenda. We will be discussing some new projects that we'll be working on over the summer. Typically, we look at and analyze a few different parts of the budget and so forth, and other things and expenditures in town during the slower season over the summer. And we'll also begin to talk about, I know we just passed the budget on Monday, but we'll start to look at what does next year's budget look like and how should guidance be given. Last year, the year before, and before that, Zagrodsky usually provided it in December at the State of the Town meeting. We'll probably try to advance that a bit so that as you begin developing your budgets really in the fall,
That would be great.
you guys will have sort of that guidance in terms of where we think, based on everything we know at the point, where we would guide budgets to.
Right, I mean, things change, but the
Yeah.
earlier guidance would be helpful, for sure.
Yep.
And you
Okay.
know what, Jim? We think of our people that work on these budgets, but, the Board of Finance does a lot of heavy lifting. You personally do a lot of heavy lifting. You did a lot of heavy lifting on the bond issue. You continue to help me on Great Island tremendously. And I realize you actually have another job, which, full-time job. So I'm just really, thank you.
Listen, I think this is, again, I'll reiterate, I think this is one of the best budget seasons we've had. A lot of it's just sort of the cooperation, the way the boards work together. So, we had some last minute changes that we thought about on the Board of Ed budget because some additional changes had come up. We sort of approached them probably a couple weeks before we voted. Jill and Duke and Rich sort of helped us sort of get through and think through a few of the sort of revenue assumptions there, and I think in the end we got to a good decision that everyone supported and the RTM supported, so it's good.
Jim's also a great athlete, too.
All right, that's
We'll save all the pickle talk until after next OPC.
yeah.
So,
Fantastic, thank you. Last night, we went over we had a planning zoning commission meeting last night we went over our second discussion of the ADU issues. The way we kind of looked at it this go-around was making two types of different kind of ADUs. One with inside a house, which would be like converting your garage or your family room to an in-law suite. If you look at that article on the front page of Darien Times a couple weeks ago. And the other one would be a freestanding building, if you had like a pool house or a garage or some other house on your property have a different size. So we're still working on that issues. Some sizes came up. We really would like to get a public hearing scheduled either at the end of June. We have a meeting on June 27th, or the beginning of July, which would be July 11th. I want to get this done, the public hearing done, before the summer kicks in. If their next meeting would be July 18th, but that gets too close to the end of the summer vacation time, people start to go away. I think after that meeting, we may have a second public hearing for people to come chime in on that. Last night, we directed staff to draft a favorable report for the leases over at Great Island. There's a bunch of houses, or a handful of houses that are on the property that are leased. And there's also the stable, which is, I guess, has some kind of lease in place on it, or had a lease in place on it. As per state statute, and Kate wrote us a memo relative to, as per state statute, anything the town of Darien owns, and they want to either buy, sell, lease, or significantly change it, you have to get a report from the Planning and Zoning Commission to be able to move that process forward. So we're moving it forward. The only thing that the discussion that came up was around insurance on the property and special uses on the property. It was really outside of the scope of what we were supposed to be doing last night, but we talked about it anyway. So that some of that writing might be written inside there. I gave an example as the Darien Boat Club. That's a piece of property that's owned by the town of Darien. It's leased to the Darien Boat Club for them to operate it. And I bet you dollars to donut there are boats at Darien Boat Club that are worth more than some of the houses or some of the animals that may live on Great Island. But we have a lot of instances like that. We also have a lot of instances where there are clubs in town, in residential zones, that operate as a commercial entity, which is kind of an example to that. The next thing on
Well, question on that. Does the
Yep.
RTM will the RTM review those leases?
Yes.
And do you have any sense on when?
I would hope that you
Okay, thank you.
Steve, just on the ADU question, as residents think about, if somebody was to have an ADU on their property, would that ADU be appraised to a value from the landlord's perspective based on a residential property, or would it be as a commercial property looking at the fee-generating income that property generates?
It's really going to be based on cost. 90% of the grant list when it comes to residential is based upon cost. So for argument's sake, I want to put an ADU in my garage in my house. I have to pull a building permit, which is going to cost me, $75,000 to renovate the garage and make it into an ADU. My assessment will likely go up based upon that building permit.
But I guess my question is...
I want to get there. The other side of the coin is the income side. Will the income generated from the ADU increase the value of the house? In most instances, the town of Darien and other towns do not require, it's called an income and expense statement or financials from a residential owner. They only request those from commercial owners. So whether you get zero rent or you get $3,000 a month, they're not going to know it. And I bet you a lot of the ADUs that are built in town are people that have, there was a gentleman that came in, I'm going to say about a year ago. He wanted to build an ADU in his house, so when his kids came over and his extended family came over for Thanksgiving, that they had places to sleep. And the only difference between that and what would be here now is if that gentleman wants to put a stove inside that building that he built.
Got it.
So it doesn't generate any rent,
Okay.
right? These things may generate some kind of income if people do use it for income, but are you going to charge your mother-in-law to live in your garage?
Well, that's probably not an OPC question.
That was a good answer.
Because I was thinking more so in terms of the tax collector's office, because if every single ADU needed to be sort of valued on a profit and loss statement, that would be a fairly significant.
Jim, could I suggest that after the ADU regulations are proposed, you might want to ask the town assessor to come give you a report to the Board of Finance on what impact that could have on the grand list.
It's a great idea.
One of the, it was a fantastic idea. One of the things that we also did is inside the regulation, in our land use, we have a lot of notice provisions. So if you put a, underground Coltech system in your front yard, that gets filed on the land records because there's a maintenance plan to that. And what we want to do is want to be able to track the ADUs, and when the property does sell and it comes up in a town report, we're going to put a notice provision in there that if you put an ADU in your house, a notice is going to be filed on the land records. And that, I don't know how much it costs to file a piece of paper in the land records. I think it's like $2 a page or something like that. It's not like it's an expensive process, but that's how you can track those things, and those notices will go to the town clerk and probably across the hall to the assessor.
Can you rent out an ADU?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would go back to your question of revenue versus cost.
But of the number of ADUs built in town, so let's say, for argument's sake, say there's 50. Of those 50, only, less than half will be rented.
Is the only threshold for an ADU a stove and?
Yep. It's
There's
really,
a bathroom.
it's really only a stove.
No
in the
size
bathroom.
minimum, right? It's gotta be.
There's no size minimum.
Are you going to,
We're going to do maximums.
okay. You're
Right
going-
now, our first draft of maximum size on a blanket size was 1,200 square feet. We're probably going to change that. It was 1,200 square feet or 30% of the size of the dwelling. We're probably going to change that and break that in half to one size for inside a house and one size for a freestanding.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
It's like if you have a house with an existing au pair suite.
correct.
Yeah.
If you have a house with an existing au pair suite, you could put a stove in there now, and once you put the stove in there now and you file the building permits, you file the permits, then it would go on the land records. But
Okay.
are you going to charge au pair rent?
No,
No.
you can't legally.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law, I will not charge her rent.
So it's the two times it would get flagged were either if you actually filed a building permit or if you charged rent. But if you had an existing condition or, it doesn't necessarily show up.
Yeah, no one with an au pair suite, like, there's a lot of those in town today, should have a stove inside their au pair suite. My in-laws have 2 stoves in their house because they cook their turkeys in the basement, but it's not an au pair suite down there.
Got it. But you can have a microwave, right?
You can have a microwave, you can have a toaster, you can have a coffee maker, you can have an air fryer as soon as you put in a stove. That's what triggers it.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
The next thing on my list was Tracy Mara. We had this discussion last week. She's not, or last meeting, she's not here. She's trying to organize that tour of Darien with a lot of the help, what I call the Hartford delegation. She reached out, or was reaching out to the director of economic development. The woman's name is Alexandra. I forget her last name, but she reached out to them to see if we can get the delegation from Hartford and other elected officials in town and do a driving tour in town about all the stuff we've done in the last 20 years. That goes into my next point is tonight I have it's tomorrow. I have a chair of chairs meeting where the chairman of our peer group of Lower Fairfield County have a Zoom meeting like once a month where we get together and talk about issues in town. And 90% of the time it lands up being about the stuff that's going on up in Hartford, which is really the legislation. The big discussion today is I think tomorrow is going to be around the fair share bill, which is still floating up in Hartford. Our staff is really monitoring all the bills that are up in Hartford, still in play up there. I would say that Fred Donate is now the town expert on all that stuff, what's going on. He's doing a great job monitoring that. And the fair share bill still it's still alive. It came out of committee, is what they call it. The other night I was watching on TV where Governor Lamont was on CT Mirror, it was on TV 79, and the interviewer, they call him Padge or Pax or something like that from CT Mirror, asked him some questions, and he asked Governor Lamont about suburban zoning, where does he stand on that? He specifically called out Darien as one of the towns about it. He was kind of open on his issue. But he said in his own right that he wants to build affordable housing or housing around train stations, of which we have 5 that are near the town of Darien. And the fair share bill, the last time I looked at it, which is kind of important, and it's been changed, the fair share document's been changed a couple times. They wanted to build, I think it's 6,248 dwelling units in the town of Darien. That's what we were called out for. There's no timeline for that. We did a study, and I have another copy of it here, since 2000, which is going back 20 years, Darien's built or approved 935 dwelling units. So it took us 20 years to build 1,000, and the fair share bill, which is in Hartford, is planning on 6,000 for the town of Darien. I gotta believe the fair share bill does not look out 20 years, where you would put that out of the funding study.
And Steve, if that wasn't built, the town would have to build it.
If it wasn't built.
If that wasn't built sort of privately, the town would then have to be on the hook.
That's what I don't, there's no funding mechanism in that fair share bill.
I thought it falls on the municipality to ultimately.
I mean, the only thing the town can do is approve it. The only thing P&Z can do is approve it. If you're gonna finance it, that's a different entity, and that has always been wishy-washy. Most of these bills are geared towards planning and zoning. They don't go into the money side of it, and I think the gentleman on the TV interview asked Lamont about that, and he kept saying like he's gonna do some kind of subsidies, for towns, but that's really, I think people give them rent money, that's what it comes down to. So looping it back, relative to Tracy Mara and what she's trying to do, it's obviously that the people in Hartford and maybe even Mott don't know what's going on in Darien. So if we can get this tour in town about what we've done over the last 20 years or even 10 years, and they understand what's going on here, then maybe that's going to help the cause. This bill is still active. It's not dead. I don't know when it comes to I don't know when it comes to light or comes for a vote, but it's still out there, and there's another couple of ones there. So a lot of these little things or big things are all connected together, which is what we're working on. What else is on here? A couple of follow-ups last meeting. I said that I was going to speak to the developer for Parklands, talk about affordable housing or additional housing in town. I found out that Mr. Gillen didn't return my phone call because he was ill. I think he was in the hospital, so I will follow up on that. We spoke about this a couple different times. Phase 1 at Corbin District is basically done. The Bank of America got its temporary certificate of occupancy and moved into their new branch. There's a big, beautiful mural on the side of 1120, which is the old Bank of America building, that says "You are not alone," where they had the depot thing there. Phase 2 of the Norotan Heights Shopping Center that's all demolished. They're going to start doing ground up once they get some of the materials off site. What else is on here? The big thing that I want to talk about relative to what's happened since our last meeting is congratulations on the purchase of Great Island. That was done on Cinco de Mayo, which is 5/5. You guys did a fantastic job. That I think is the biggest change since our last OPC meeting, and it's going to be fantastic. Me personally, I look forward to seeing all the applications and whatever's going to happen over there in the next. My term goes for 2 more years, so if something comes up in 2 years, I'll be there. If it doesn't come up in the next 2 years, which I bet you it's not going to all come up in 2 years, because they've been working on Waveney for 20 years. We'll see what happens. We do have on our agenda for the May 30th meeting, I think there's an application that's already been filed. I've not seen it relative to the special permit for the horse stables that are on the property and where that's going to go. Then the last item, which is, again, this is connected. With housing, I went to a thing that's called BizNow. It's a trade group that has meetings. It was up at Merit 7 last week. There was probably 200 people there. It's all a bunch of real estate, finance, office developers, residential developers, other kind of commercial developers. David Genovese was actually one of the speakers. The big takeaway from that I have is there was a board panel on multifamily housing and multifamily development and apartments. one of the gentlemen that's up there is, who's there is a guy named David Parisier, which is from Palladium Development. He has a big portfolio inside New Haven. New Haven's doing fantastic in terms of multifamily housing, and they call it EDS and MEDS. They're not doing any of the multifamily housing development and growing that town with any help from any state statute or government or fair share or anything like that. They're doing it on their own. Spinnaker, who's another developer that really basically rebuilt all of downtown South Norwalk, they're also very active up in New Haven, and they're not getting any incentives to do it up here. So the takeaway from that is that if you leave it to the open market in Darien or in Hartford or in New Haven, it will get done. You just need governmental support from people like P&Z to approve those type of projects.
What about Bridgeport? Is that a whole different story because of the town government and things?
That I've worked on the biggest Bridgeport project for, I think, 5 years. It's called Steel Point. If you go past it, exit 3129, there's a brand new marina there. That gentleman is my client. They have 4,000 approved units to be built on that site. They spent in the 9-figure numbers to renovate that, to remediate that site and raise it up 13 feet and get it out of the flood zone. They can't get financing to build the first building. And they don't have a pilot. They have no state support to do it. The only thing they did do, which is similar to what they did down in the South End, is they did a TIF tax bonding, which is, it's called, TIF means tax incremental funding, where they put in basically $100 million of roads and streets and whatnot. There's a tax, it has its own taxing district. That's the only thing that the state helped on, and they really did that by themselves. So what Lamont said in his meeting, he said in the next 5 years, he can see 10,000 units being built across the state of Connecticut. There's 4,000 right now, ready to go. The guy's chomping at the bit to break ground.
He doesn't have the money.
No, and he gets no state support. It's amazing. It's really bad. So I don't know what the problem is.
What's the financing? It's not the property, right?
The property's ready to go. I mean, you have a boat. You've driven by. It's where there's a bar called Boca. It's a great oyster bar, and there's a whole marina there, and it's all grass. They can go vertical tomorrow.
It's absolutely beautiful green field. I mean, set to.
Is that right where the ferry is?
It's right
Yes.
where the ferry
Okay,
is,
then
right
I know
where
what-
Bass
yeah.
Pro
Yeah.
Shops is.
Yeah, okay, I know what you're
There's a
talking
bunch
about.
of industry right
Yeah.
there. They own.
It looks so great.
There's
They've
a
done a
guy
huge job.
from Newport that fixes boats there. The Staten Island Ferry, when it breaks, they send it to that place and they fix it. That's how big it is, and I don't know why they don't build it. I cannot figure it out. I was kind of sort of invited to a groundbreaking, but it never broke ground.
Thank
I
you.
think
They've
that's
developed
it
a
for-
lot around there with what they did to the stadium, turning that into a sort of a concert hall.
Yeah,
And, I mean,
everything is
it's-
great.
It's ripe for.
Yeah, I was up in Bridgeport last week, 2 weeks ago. We're doing 2 more financings up there for multifamily and residential, and it starts at where that Hartford Arena. I mean, not the Hartford. Yeah, the Hartford Health Center Arena that you talked about, the old.
Yeah, Bluefish.
Yeah, the old Bluefish.
Yeah.
It's called Art Street. If you go from there to the top, you hit the Cabaret Theater in there. That's where they have their St. Patrick's Day walk, and it's beautiful. They did a great job, but they don't get any state support, and I don't know what. I haven't figured it out. I think that's it. Any questions? I'm always here.
Okay, I want to start similar to you with congratulations on Great Island. You did a fabulous job. And the RTM committees are looking forward to helping and making it accessible to the public and all of us. Can't wait. I'm ready to go. So, and good luck with interviewing 45 people for those positions, because I know several people have applied and they're all fabulous.
They are. We have terrific candidates. So.
Yeah, it's great. Just to summarize, from our meeting that we're very grateful for the Darien Foundation grant of $123.5 million for the $1,000, sorry. $123,000. It would be great to have a million, but anyway.
Pay for the whole budget.
Yeah. For the Darien Police Department for the boat. That's terrific, well needed, and it's really well supported. And the police were really grateful. I'm part of public health and safety, so we actually got to talk to them about it, and they were very grateful. Then the appropriation of $2.6 million to from the unassigned fund to cover the capital projects. Right, did I do that right? Transfer from the general fund instead of having to bond it, so thank you, that was a good move. Then the rest of the budget, just quickly, the reserved and capital fund and non-recurring expenditures is $4.7 million. Then the Selectmen's operating budget, there was a reduction for the Board of Finance contingency fund of $75,000, so the number was $51+ million for the Selectmen's operating budget. Then the education budget of $114.4 million, and the mill rate of 17.6, and an additional 7.4 in other appropriations. So that all passed. So you're all done. You can get started on spending the money and getting the things. And
Well, not till July 1, but yes.
well, I know, but move forward. You can get that off the plate and do all these other incredible things that you're doing. We also did an appropriation of $119.7 million for refunding of the bonds. So that covers the standard thing. It was a long meeting. I thank all the members of the boards and the town committees and Kate and Jen for all the work that was done, because there was a lot of things. And the F&B committee did an amazing job pulling it all together in conjunction with all of you, so we're very grateful for that. So and we're also grateful, and I want to, Channel 79 does an amazing job of putting up all this information there. And I know that some of the meetings don't have as much attendance as some of you would like, but you should know that we're there watching on television, either online or afterwards, and we go back a lot. And I've been doing this for a long time, and years ago, we could go to meetings and we could say something. Now there's a public comment. I'm not asking you to change it, I'm just clarifying that public comment is either before and after. So from a standpoint of somebody like me, it doesn't really pay to go to a meeting because the topic isn't really clear until you get to the discussion. So we will spend a lot of time just watching it on TV. Doesn't mean we're not interested, doesn't mean we don't care. It's just, it's not worth it for us to sit through a long meeting when we can be home doing whatever and we can't make a comment anyway. So if you see it kind of sparsely attended for some of the meetings, it's not because we're not interested, it's just because Channel 79 is really making it easy for us to do it and watch it and make sure other people, which we did a lot of. I mean, in prep for the meeting on Monday night, we were sending a lot of emails around the RTM saying, okay, take a look at this meeting at this point, start here, because it addresses what you think, what you're interested in. And we want to make sure that people, really get it. But it's a great way of saying, okay, it's a long meeting, but if you start at 26 minutes in, you can actually get the highlight of what you need to know about that issue, and then we'll talk about it in our committee. So it's really changed. Channel 79 has changed how we work, which is for the better. It's
But you
great.
still have the quorum at your meetings, right?
Excuse me?
You still have to have a quorum at your open RTM meetings.
Oh, yeah.
When you watch our meetings.
Yeah, when I'm talking about when we watch all of your meetings.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
our meetings, we do have quorums, and our meetings can be virtual or in person, depending on what the committee chair wants to do. And we're actually doing some hybrid meetings, but we're not trying to encourage that because that's kind of hard to manage. But we can do some of them. But it's really your meetings, because some of them look empty, but you need to know that we're there and we're paying attention.
Well, I guess I'd say on that, with ours, the Board of Finance has always ran those a little bit differently. We've generally let people sort of on a topic by topic
That's good to
basis.
know.
We've always allowed people to kind of chime in. And I'll tell you one thing in terms of making things better on Channel 79. I mean, they've done. It's an amazing job, amazing asset to other elected boards and to our community. But I think one thing that we could all become a little bit more consistent on to, I think, help Jim improve Channel 79's product is, and I know we've been doing it for a few years now, is time stamping the various things. And so I think
Yeah, it's really helpful.
usually a minute after a meeting ends, Taylor, who serves as our secretary, sends out a timestamp. It's always within like 10, 15 seconds or so. So the top 10 things that we discuss are immediately available within 2 or 3 hours when Jim posts the video. So I think if we could have a little bit of a consistent approach across all of our boards, without creating too much additional work on staff, but if just whoever's taping them and keeping the minutes can do that, it really makes it, I think, valuable for us all to kind of flip around and get to the points which are most important to us.
Or whatever we're focusing on at the moment. I think that's a great
So-
support.
So do you mean like when you're doing the agenda, it says at start ours, it says Stephen Vanney opened the meeting at, 7:02.
So usually, yeah.
So you talked to like when we spoke about ADUs, it was at 8:06?
Exactly, and then it'll say,
Okay.
you spoke about Great Island at like,
It's 20 minutes into
22
the
minutes
tape,
into
the
it.
tape,
Right.
after the start of the meeting, so that you can
So
watch
because
it.
we can do that in our minutes really easy.
We do
That's
that in
easy.
our
Yeah.
minutes now, but you guys do
Yeah.
it on your agenda immediately
we
afterwards.
do it in our
It's different.
minutes, and then right after the meeting's over, Taylor just keeps a record that says, 1 minute in, chairman's remarks, 5 minutes in, discussion of budget, 7 minutes in, discussion of
Tied to the agenda.
grand list, and then sends that, and Jim posts that directly in the Vimeo link. And so it's extremely valuable for a lot of the other committees that need to watch it, and even the public.
Okay.
So,
So I have one more. I want to thank Kate Bush for including us in the planning for the technology upgrades to the auditorium. We're very excited. I've seen some of the preliminary work that's going on. And in fact, the other night, somebody was standing at the front of the RTM, and 2 people were talking about, well, we're doing that. And I go, it's coming, and it's going to be really good. So thank you for including us, and really, really looking forward to the day when, we can get through the stage. And I really appreciate and like the idea of the splitting up into the planning stage and the implementation stage. I think that was a really good move.
Well, that was, we couldn't get anybody to bid on the whole thing. But I have to say, your involvement, Mike Wheeler's, Jim Cameron's, has been invaluable because you were the users. And while I might have what I thought should be done, you guys are the ones who need, since the RTM is our biggest user of that room. But we've also included making sure it works for planning and zoning. But you're the ones with the boots on the ground, and you know what you need. So it's really been invaluable, your input, so.
It's been good.
It's exciting.
It's very, we'll have our own red tape net, other people don't have to come, but we will definitely have a ceremony when we figure out how it all works. So, thank you.
will there be permanent, sort of video up there?
Yeah. So there'll be cameras.
Like that.
There'll be a Zoom, what do they call it? A Zoom, a board that, an operator can use. But there will be, they call it a confidence monitor up on the balcony, but so that people sitting in front can see what's, if there were a Zoom meeting, what was being projected there, or if somebody's doing a PowerPoint, planning and zoning board sitting down front can see the PowerPoint. They don't have to turn around. There'll be a projector permanently installed. A decision yet to be made whether it'll be from the front or from the rear, because there's cost issues involved. But that will make, no more setting up with a little projector in the front.
I'm crossing your fingers that it's going to work.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Have the right cable.
Yeah, so I think it'll be really good.
That's great.
Hey, Steve, I was going to go back to the fair share. So
Okay.
I was on a CCM call, I think it was yesterday morning, and CCM and WestCog are not in favor of this bill.
Right.
There are like 450 bills that have come out of these committees, and they have 17 days to rule on all of these bills, plus the budget. So, but this bill has come out before. So I do think it's really onerous for our community. I think the lawsuit possibility for not adhering to this is really problematic. I think that's a big sticking point for CCM, but I would encourage anybody out there to reach out to our elected officials and let them know where you stand on this, because this, even though there are a lot and it hasn't made it to the finish line in the past, it's still live, so.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. It's serious stuff for the town of Darien. And there's big parking lots that are near our train stations, Darien and Norotan Heights, that are either privately controlled or or publicly controlled, and they're out of the hands of Darien, and that's part of the target. You know, that's part of the target. We have a lot of traffic issues, and I don't know if we can do any more transit-oriented development that we're already doing.
Because of the parking constraints, you think?
Really, it's really because of the roads.
Imagine if they were to
I mean,
build
you could build
housing
a-
in Norotan Heights
Yeah.
over the parking lot.
Yeah, which is what
And
they did in
what-
Harrison.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and what could that do to the volume of traffic on Norotan Avenue, on Heights Road, on Hollow Tree? So that's the kind of thing you have to be concerned about. Or worse, downtown.
No, West Avenue.
If you build a 1,000-space parking garage that's 4 stories, you know, and cars have to go in, with no apartments, cars have to go in and out, that's a big traffic problem. You know? Can I add one last thing? Queens Ledge Lighthouse is under renovation. I think it's finished.
Yeah.
The boating season
Yes.
starts.
Yeah, been there.
I think we have a dock now at Great Island, you know?
Not a
Just give us
public
a
dock.
beat, okay?
I'll take you out if you want to go out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, let me have a
Thank you.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Steve, Jim, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Thank you.